Why do you hate that person in your work? Wouldn't say hate, but you know the one person who asks a question at the end of a meeting, normally just because they just like the sound of their own voice. Yeah, that one. Story 2. He is supremely lazy, not just in a bare minimum for the paycheck way, but to the point that he half-assed half of his workload and literally skipped past the hardest half. Literally didn't do anything for 1 week out of 2 for duck knows how long. We work in grounds maintenance. Think industrial scale gardening for entire suburb-sized estates. So each two-man team has thousands of square yards of grass to cut, literal miles of hedges, acres of driveways and car parks to be weeded and sprayed. If we aren't there on a regular basis, crap turns to I Am Legend levels real fast. He then moaned he was being overworked. He has a small solo round that is 10% of our volume to do. We measured on our mapping system. My work buddy and I have the distinction of being highly capable and motivated management speak for, these guys can work twice as hard and twice as fast. Let's reward them by sending them to unduck this mess. So we got nominated as the cleanup crew. Our 15-day usual turnaround on a massive cycle, the largest of our 8 teams, is now 22 days and counting because of this. And we just got our first complaint from a regular customer that we weren't around and now the area looks crap. Just found out at close of work this evening our absentee team leader, off with stress, has been covering for him. I've been a working man way too long to let this just go. I know how corporate management systems work. I know it will be dismissed as a glitch in the team format. I know that it will be twisted so that we are blamed and the downturn on our round will be held and used against us. I know there will be consequences if I stand firm against a spineless company. And I don't duck and care if I end up jobless, penniless, and homeless at this point. I've survived and thrived through worse. There may be some serious adjustment training coming his way, and there'll be some truth bombs dropped on my way out. Moab-sized. Sorry, rant over. Story 3. This is going back quite a few years now, probably 20, which makes me feel very old. The office I worked in was open plan, so if someone was loud and obnoxious, there was no avoiding them. And boy, was this ducker loud and obnoxious. The first thing to say is that there was no dress code at the office. People came in wearing jeans, shirts, t-shirts, hoodies, shorts, all depending on the weather. But this guy would sometimes come in wearing what looked like a full-blown football kit. I think he did it to prove what a ruddy, bloody bloke he was. This was at the time when people still thought Johnny Vaughn was funny, and he did that Johnny Vaughn thing of speaking really loudly in a tone of voice that suggested that you found everything incredibly ironic. Hope you understand what I mean by that explanation. It used to be Vaughn's whole shtick. He seemed to really project the idea that he drank beer, liked footy, probably read FHM and Maxim, and was a proper lad. Yet at the same time, he looked like Postman Pat. He had a team of minions who he held court with every day. They seemed to find him hilarious. Once they'd all been to the pub after work, and he must have let himself back in afterwards with a traffic cone that he'd stolen. Always after that, every few minutes in the office, he'd lift it up to his mouth and make a weird bellowing noise, followed by the tittering of his minion. I remember this was about the time that the second season of The Office aired. I remember him loudly telling his minions, so that everyone else could hear, that no one watches it with the same sense of irony that we do. And I just thought, you smug. You're the kind of person it's mocking. How do you not get that? I used to think that outside of the office, he probably didn't have a lot going on. And for him, the office was life. Maybe I should have felt a bit sorry for him, but he was just so ducking annoying. Story 4. He acted like the teacher's pet at school, but we were both on our mid-20s. Would CC and our manager or else make sure our manager was within earshot if he thought I'd made a mistake, no matter how small and insignificant. Had a smarmy smile every time, and used to do a weird headshake thing when doing so. Story 5. 2 things. When they first started, I offered a lift to work until they got their own car. One day at a traffic light, I stalled the car. Not wanting to be honked at for being a dunce or have the light change back to red, I restarted and got off the line a little fast. I wasn't cross. It barely registered as an event in my mind. A little oops. This turd said calm down as we drove off. Reader, I have never been more instantly incensed. Strike 1 some weeks later, perhaps I was helping the boss with a model sent by a client. They'd sent an incredibly detailed object that needed only be a rectangular cube. I had explained this to the boss and was about to produce said cube instantaneously when this turd walks over and offers to help me. Sure, in retrospect, it was probably just him trying too hard to help and integrate with the team, but it came across so rude to suggest that I need help making a cube. It's 2 buttons in my software. I studied for 3 years to get a first in my degree doing this job. Strike 2. At this point, I've already decided I don't like this person, but work is work, and I'm trying my neurodivergent hardest to conceal my disdain. They come across know-it-all, and, well, actually, And truthfully, they did some things I realize I do, and it made me sick to see how annoying it is from the outside. So I extra tried to be polite since I knew I was a hypocrite. My final strike was when I got sick with COVID and desperately needed painkillers dropped off, and they were my only option. I opened the front door to find them peering around the side of the building like they were looking for something. This is mad Suze to me, and I was done making excuses on their behalf. What were you looking for, eh? Strike 3. Don't even talk to me, man. Story 6. He lies to everyone. He's got a split personality and a huge ego. I don't understand him. He told me other lads in work didn't like me, and I should be careful around them, which really shocked me. So I talked to them and befriended them to make my work life easier. After a year, 2 of these guys quit and asked me for a drink to say goodbye. I obliged, and there was a photo of the group on Instagram. The next day, this bloody monster of a man sent for me to come to meet him in a cafe. He is a manager, and I'm a supervisor. He sat me down and asked, "How would you feel if you were me and you saw you in a picture on Instagram with people who are negative towards this company?" I was totally shocked, and he's basically the whole reason I befriended these guys, and he proceeded to tell me that he would overlook me for future opportunities if he thought I was in cahoots with these guys, and it was only because he respected me so much that he wanted to have this conversation. I was pretty furious and proceeded to give him a piece of my mind, and it ended up being a bit of a shouting match across the table of us both being like, "Do you understand me? No. Do you understand me? No. Now do you understand me?" And I don't understand him, and he doesn't understand me, and I never will. This is just one example of us butting heads, but it's happened a few times and we never ever understand each other. I find his presence so uncomfortable, I feel on edge around him, and there's this weird thing where he laughs and jokes, but it's really uncomfortable, and everyone's like, "Hardy Har, I'm scared of you." And then it can flip just like that. I hate him. Story 7. Working in it. Company of 17,000 end users. Every member of staff needs this specific software on their laptop to work remotely. My team at the time noticed that the company had ran out of licenses for that software at the start of COVID lockdown, when 90% of the workforce were sent to work remotely, as we were taking support phone calls to help people set up. I let the team who purchased licenses know that the company has ran out and that they may need to purchase more. A member of that team contacted me and spent 3 hours just moaning at me over company messenger, acting like I personally have single-handedly used up all these licenses. 3 hours, many paragraphs, just moan. Told him that if he has a grievance with the process documentation we are following, then he'd need to speak to his manager or my manager, and the person who wrote the document. He told me I'm clearly not following the documentation. I advised him I use the same documentation as the rest of the team. We have a shared area for support documentation, which this person knows about. He told me to send him the documentation, so I did. Guess who was the author of the document? Him. Then he went and purchased the licenses and left me alone. But years later, even now, I'm in a new department. Anytime I need to contact this guy for work reasons, he's an ass. Since joining this new team, I've had the exact same situation with him regarding a separate matter. But now he's team leader of his team. He's even harder to argue with. But hey, at least my new boss covers my back. Story 8. I strongly dislike a teaching assistant at school. They basically don't believe special needs or mental health exists. They're all attention seekers and choose to misbehave. She also doesn't use the CPOMS and claims you can't use it on your phone. Those who know what that means, yep, no idea how she gets away with that. Story 9. I don't hate anyone, but we have had some bad apples and some really annoying to crafty ones in the past. One I've mentioned before on Reddit always had to one-up on anything anyone said, usually about something bad. She will have to out-bad them and hated anyone commenting on it, like she didn't want to draw attention to herself. She did it in almost a boasting way, and she could be very cruel. One lady was upset her dog was ill and needed some expensive treatment, and this woman was very pushy, saying she was selfish not putting the dog down because it was cheaper, and dogs were useless anyway and should spend more time and attention on herself/her kids if she had any. I couldn't be in the same room as her if she started crap like this. She indeed had her own problems at home, but she was nice when she wanted. She just gave off the airs of a crap stirrer. Worked with 2 dentists as a dental nurse who were just bad at their jobs. One I just couldn't understand how she got through dental school, and the other was a terrible timekeeper, not that great in what he did and frankly a bit of a crook. Luckily, they don't work with us anymore. Had another who was so far up his own horizon rude. Everyone struggled to work with the guy, be it reception or nurse. Anyone he considered lower than him that he actually depended on getting the job done. Publicly made 2 nurses have meltdowns and screaming matches with him because he was so ducking nasty, even in front of some patients. Story 10. Not so much hate, but find incredibly irritating. They claim to be always busy, yet are extremely lazy and have the lightest workload. Constantly complain about no one helping them. Their work isn't as time-sensitive as other work going on. And they do get help when it can be provided, but they never help out others. They're also very manipulative. Story 11. Oh, so many things to be irritated by. Where to begin? Not reading things properly. Then asking me a question that they could have easily found the answer for had they bothered to scroll up a few lines. Asking me to make PDFs. Make it yourself. Including me in meetings I have no real reason to be in. Including me in emails I have no reason to be copied in on. Claiming credit for work I did. Making meetings 1,000 times longer than they needed to be because they love the sound of their own voice and are waffling on about nothing in particular. Calling a meeting to read through the PowerPoint presentation you made. Just send me the PowerPoint. Pretending to know what they are doing and being paid to do by the company, and then direct messaging me to ask how to do XYZ. These questions are usually phrased like silly me, but I've forgotten how to. I think this is a dig version to what I'm used to. Here's a tip. Ask Google or don't accept a job you clearly can't do. In short, I spend my days being irritated by incompetence, holding people's hands. I will only do this happily for interns or juniors. Story 12. At risk of being downvoted, the ones who go off for long periods citing mental health every time they have a deadline. At some point, you just have to accept that you can't do the job. Don't just expect all your colleagues to drop everything to wipe your arise. Story 13. She doesn't shut the duck up, ever. 75% of the time, she's not even talking to anyone in particular, she's just shouting whatever stupid thought comes into her mind. She mainly complains about stuff that nobody has any control over, and every day it's something new. Today it's the lack of external fire exit in our 5th floor office that was built in the 80s. What is anyone supposed to do? Just bolt on a staircase to the exterior of the building? Drives me nuts. Story 14. My ex-boss. I still work for the same place, but in a different team. Used to refuse to train me, and then would gaslight me in front of government employees. We worked for government, telling me it was really bad, that I didn't know how to do basic crap. She learned that I sang in clubs on the weekend and asked me to show her my set lists on Spotify. I asked if it would get flagged with it if I was using Govit systems to access non-work related stuff, and she said it wouldn't be a problem. And then later down the line, she sacked me. One reason she gave was that I was using government property to access personal/non-work related things like Spotify. There are many more examples I could give. This was 4 years ago, and I thoroughly enjoy my current job in a different department, so I never have to speak to her, but I still ducking despise her. Her treatment led to me having a breakdown, and I'll never forgive her for it. Story 15. I was once the supervisor for a small team, but had no input in the selection and interviewing process. There was this one guy they hired once to work under me that I absolutely despised. He was white, from Durban, South Africa, but before that from Zimbabwe though, he still referred to it as Rhodesia. He came out with the most obnoxious comments, but everybody seemed to just keep quiet about it. I tried to keep everything professional, only commenting on work matters. I remember my manager asked at my interview if I had a problem with this guy, and I wanted to say something along the lines of, yes, the comments he keeps coming out with, but I chickened out and said, I haven't got any problem with the work he does. By the way, we had another guy in the office, also a white South African from Cape Town, and both he and his wife were the nicest people you could meet. And I remember this guy looked very uncomfortable after meeting the idiot one the first time, and tried to avoid him whenever he could. Story 16. Hate's a strong word, but this woman really annoys me. She is extremely religious, Christian, and I don't mind that, but she judges people for living together before marriage, etc. She is also extremely snobby. She's one of those that grew up poor and has made something of herself and is now a complete snob. They are the worst of Story 17. I definitely don't hate this person. They are a very nice person, but they do some things that I hate. I am their team leader in a small office and can be having a conversation with someone, and they have to interrupt to give their opinion. I sit in a small office within a larger office, and rather than get up to come and ask me a question, they will shout from the far side of the larger office to me in the small office. And if I say I can't hear them, they will just shout louder. They also talk with food in their mouth. This is something that makes me feel physically sick, and the whole team know I can't stand it. Look up misophonia. If you don't understand what I mean, they will ask me a question and put food in their mouth whilst asking the question. Not only does it make me feel ill, it's also incredibly bad manners. I have actually shouted at them once because they did it multiple times. Wow, that feels good to get it off my chest. In Story 18, he took my work and passed it off as his own, got major praise, etc. I didn't call him out because at the time, he was a senior to me and I was new. He also sent an email dissing something I created and shared with the wider team. Others in the team liked what I'd done and used the model to this very day, so I don't hate him per se, but he's an idiot and I ignore him. Maybe a smidge of hate. Story 19. Older guy, not diagnosed, but very clearly also autistic. He's a guy who likes having a system to his work. But his systems are inferior. They're not too bad. I can work with them, but the neurotypical staff struggle, and he won't take suggestions to change his systems to the point of denying obvious problems. Part of this is he's a brick crap house. So if something is physically hard and stressful to do, he just goes, "I'm fine with it. You're doing it wrong. Watch me." Then he proceeds to do exactly what I/others were doing, but just brutes through it. Still, he explains it in a super itemized and procedural way that is music to my ears, so I don't hate him. Think if he got diagnosed, he might be much better at working around his issues, but trying to get an old, stubborn autistic person to admit he's autistic after 5 decades of not being autistic is hard. My dad's not very stubborn, and it was hard enough with him. We don't like change. Story 20. Someone at my last workplace really got on my bad side. They were desperate to be the manager's favorite, and at the same time, desperate to be everyone's best mate. She would purposely create situations where she could then run to the manager to report everyone else. Once you knew what she was like, it was easier to avoid. But not long after I started, she came to me near the end of the shift and asked if I'd like to go for an extra cigarette break. I said I don't think I'm allowed to go. Her reply was, "Well, I'm the team leader, there's only me here. I say you can go, and I'll come with you for one." So we went for a cigarette. Next day, I'm in the office getting a blocking for having an extra cigarette break. That is only one example of the countless things she did to get others in trouble. She nearly got me and 5 other people fired for fake allocations of abuse. Story 21, been there 2 years, works directly across from me, and I couldn't tell you a single book he's ever read, film or TV show he's ever seen, song he's ever listened to, sport he enjoys, subject he has curiosity about, a single thing about him. Every effort to ask about nights past or nights coming yield the same answer. He's watching the Child's Name show, apparently from when he arrives home until he retires to his bed. Now I'm all for keeping work and home separate. I don't begrudge him that. But in the total absence of a volunteered personality, I can only judge him by what's visible. And what's visible is that he grazes on pot noodles, crisps, and pastries all day, takes 7 craps per shift, and talks to his wife on the phone like she's a child. So the person I hate at work is me, for continuing to suffer that every day rather than facing the discomfort of change and the possibility of colleagues who are real people. Story 22. If I say something will be difficult, he takes it to mean I don't know how to do it, and proceeds to mansplain my own job to me, despite him not being remotely qualified to do my job and me having been doing my job since he was in junior school. I mean, it will take time. Knowing how to do something doesn't mean it's already done. More broadly, people who give me small, self-contained snippets of code, which do exactly one thing and no more, and act like they did all the difficult stuff for me. Go on then. Integrate it into this massive code base, which has a lot of rules about which bits we can and cannot modify, without impacting anything that's currently there. I'll just wait. It would be nice if, once in a while, these guys stopped to ponder why the CTO headhunted me specifically and personally to do this work when he had an entire engineering team at his disposal. Story 23. Can I despise an entire department? If so, then it's sales. Any bid documentation they attempt to fill out is an absolute minefield of dreadful spelling, grammar, and formatting. Entirely incompetent. They get us to fix it, not our job. Insist on having the draft Word files returned instead of PDFs for markup. And sure enough, they'll be sent back again, absolutely ducked to smithereens. The amount of time we waste when we have our own crap to do is unfathomable at times. I'm currently getting paid OT to fix their crap, along with another colleague. I'd hazard a guess they're better paid than us, even though we'd never win a bid if tenders weren't sorted by us, especially when they're sending out a quality plan, which ironically, as you guessed, is ducked before we fix it. We usually get this stuff lumped on us last second too, which says something about their planning on top of it all. Ducking useless. Story 24. I once worked for a small company. We used to take it in turns to make the tea/coffee. All except one. He never did. He would rather die of thirst than make drinks for everyone else. One week, I gave him Def Monday to Thursday. Friday, he got double-strength Colombian. Come in the afternoon, he was outside having a full-on panic attack, paper bag, the whole works. I didn't feel guilty. In fact, I was quite proud. Story 25. I worked with a girl close in age to me, and when I began working in the same department, incoming customer service and accounts calls, she would regularly take the piss out of what I said. She never directly did it to me, but would be on the phone to delivery drivers, bottled water company, and say stuff to them. She was never friendly towards me in 2 years that I sat close to her. The one day she came in and she was engaged, started acting completely different towards me, very friendly and so much nicer. The downside of that was I was supposed to feign interest in all the details of her upcoming wedding plan. I assumed she was just very insecure and felt threatened by how good I was at my job, and once she became engaged, she felt so much better about herself. Who knows? Story 26. Oh, there's a few. One isn't too bad. He's a nice guy, tries hard, etc. My issue with him is that 2 years into the job, he still makes very silly mistakes and forgets things he's been told multiple times. The second one is good, knows the job, can do the work, but chooses not to. It's a very relaxed job, but you have to be prepared for crap hitting the fan, and he tends to sleep on shift a lot and miss phone calls, etc. The third is just a snake, puts formal complaints in about people regularly, and sends our boss a minimum of 5 emails per day complaining about something or refusing to do something because it's not in his contract. Our boss just skims the emails to see if it's anything actually important and then deletes them. Utter pain in the arse. Story 27. Thankfully, there are only a couple of people I don't really like in work, and only 2 that I actively dislike. Not sure I'd go so far as hate, but I remain open-minded. The 2 people share a lot of traits such as their work ethic, being absolutely through the floor, regularly doing half as much work as anyone else, but still having an arrogant know-it-all attitude, whilst making all the mistakes under the sun and denying that they've made the mistake when pulled on for it. One of them behaves very erratically, to the point it makes other members of staff uncomfortable, and often comes in with weird and wonderful tales that I never know if they're lying or if they actually believe it, starting arguments over petty things that can be worked out like adults. Oh, and smelling bad. Story 28. B. She shows a bubbly personality, but she's a snake. She undermines other coworkers with casual comments, sometimes on their religion, but she does it in such an ambiguous way that, if called out, you are the bigot. She wants to climb the professional ladder, and when she perceives someone as a threat, she starts spreading her venom against that person. I've seen this happen 3 times, and she always manages to turn everyone against that person. She even has the support of senior management. I really don't know how she does it, but I can't be the only one seeing it, right? I'm starting in a new workplace on September. I'm not going to miss her. I have kind of learned to recognize that kind of personality, and it creeps me out. Story 29. They spend all day every day complaining about having no money and then go on holiday 5 or 6 times a year. And we aren't talking about Skegness, we are talking about America, Australia, or Greece as a minimum. Story 30. This guy will not shut the duck up. He has an opinion on everything. Despite the fact that he is literally just qualified, he is the expert. He tried to explain to me, a 20-year veteran teacher with a decade or more of special ed experience, plus a master's degree in special ed, that my approach to teaching a particular class was wrong. I listened, then tactfully explained why he was wrong and offered to let him watch me teach so he could see why I'm doing what I do, but he refused because clearly I don't want to use peer feedback to improve my classroom practice. Ducker got his teaching certificate 2 months ago. It's going to be a long school year. Story 31. I hate her because she should have retired about 15 years ago. She actively hates children, and we work in a school. She is vile to all the members of staff, but gets away with it because that's just how she is. I'm actually leaving next week partly because I cannot stand to be around this woman. Story 32. I work in engineering and was assigned a new technician to mentor. I helped with her first 6-month training program and mentored her for 2 years before she stopped talking to me because I got promoted. She then started to badmouth me and said that he's not that good an engineer, but every now and then he gets lucky and hits on something spectacular. She never spoke to me again, but since she's done the same thing with 2 other colleagues. Stopped talking to them for one reason or another, so I don't feel so bad about it. What makes me sad is that I only ever tried to help her, and I only ever wanted her to succeed. I didn't want thanking, but I didn't want to be crap on either. Story 33. Not one particular person, but 3. 2 team leaders and a manager, mainly because they don't want to train more people on specific critical roles, since we have the bare minimum number of people. Every time one of us 5 people trained in those roles is missing, absent, holiday, or emergency, everything goes to crap, but they always play it down as, it happened just that one time. But that one time happens at least once every 2 weeks. Happened twice this week alone. Don't think they've realized yet that one of us is going to take the whole September off, and another is going to reduce his hours, personal reasons. That's going to be fun. Story 34. Mine is the new apprentice. He's got an underage girlfriend, who he has a kid with who he never sees. He's lazy as duck, completely useless, but talks like he's Billy Big Bollocks. Lies constantly about anything. If you've done something, he's done it twice and got the t-shirt. Takes a break whenever he wants. Stands next to his toolbox, just eating all day. Constantly ducks things up, then lies about it, to try and avoid getting in trouble. This is particularly dangerous, because mistakes in my job can, and has, hurt people. Turns up 2 minutes late consistently, sometimes up to an hour late. And he will never get in any trouble for any of this because his parents are friends with our manager. Absolutely takes the piss. Story 35. Guy I'm taking over from got stuck in the role because he lost his license drunk driving. Lucky to be kept on and just taken off driving. Hates the job, hates our manager, does nothing but moan about every single process. And when it does go quiet, he moans about the same things that pissed him off from weeks ago, over and over. Absolute cancer in the workplace, who's demoralized the rest of my team so much, I'm constantly convincing them to stay because I need more staff as it is. But he's mates with the owner, so our boss can't sack him. He's getting his license back in a month, and if there's any staff left, I'm gonna take us all out for a piss-up to celebrate. Story 36. He's a lazy git. Finishes with a tool, and usually just leave it on the floor where he was, rather than put it back in the toolbox or on the shelf. On the rare occasion he'll put something away, he doesn't put it back in its spot, so I have to go searching for it. Takes about 20 minutes of smoke breaks every hour, as well as regular stoppages to just with TikTok clips. Tries to half-arize everything he does so he can finish a task quickly, not thinking of the ramifications down the line that will make later tasks harder. Damages crap all the time because if he has one free hand, he'll walk or drive around the site with his phone in the spare hand watching TikTok. Story 37. I wouldn't say hate, but dislike very much. I recently started a cozy office job, which I like for the most part, except for one thing. The office gets extremely hot, and whenever someone goes to turn the AC on and leaves it on for not even 5 minutes, my colleague starts complaining in a loud voice about how cold she is and goes to turn it off. I just don't understand why 20 other people should suffer in the heat because one person likes to be toasty in their own words. I'm rather new, so don't want to be that person to call her out and be known as the office, but I think one day I will have to take the bullet for the team. Story 38. I've left now, but he was the 17-year-old office junior who chucked a massive tantrum because he was expected to take his turn washing the coffee cups. He had never had to clean anything at home because of his religion, and at first the boss, same religion, laughed it off and was going to let him get away with it. The boss soon realized an office full of legal secretaries on a go-slow was a bigger problem. I had to teach the overgrown toddler how to wash up. Story 39. Just anyone with a bad attitude. There's a lot of work to do, so don't be doing the bare minimum. Walking around all day with your phone in your face, sneaking in lots of extra tea breaks and trying to justify it because people sometimes take an extra 5 on lunch. Had one guy go straight to the union when he found out we were getting some extra money for an agreement with the MD, union, and HR for shift patterns. Lost us all the money. Thousands amongst the 8 of us. He hates the company and its managers so much, but lost his colleagues so much money from that one incident, which the company then got to keep. Story 40. Because he's so selfish, I cannot stand him. When he's telling a story, it's, "Look at me, everyone." But when I talk to him, he pulls his phone out and pretends to listen. When we're learning something, he'll always try and dominate the area, so he's in the job, and I'm just spectating while he doesn't even tell me what he's done during testing. When I chip in, he goes deaf. Mr. Center of the Universe control freak. Try tell him to give you a spanner, and it's, why, what for? While he gets used when you say the same exact thing back at him. He's 10 years younger, so it pisses me off even more. Brat. Story 41. He's a bellend. He bullies his staff. He thinks he's an expert, but he's actually crap at his job. He thinks he's a Slytherin, but he's actually a squib. Metaphorical. I don't think we're actually living in the fictional Harry Potter universe. He is extremely disparaging about people who are actually doing a very good job, and he's the reason so many of our staff have left in the past 2 years. Story 42. There's this one woman who has a similar role to mine and has managed to turn doing her job to the very barest minimum standard into an art form. I've heard clients thank her profusely for the favor of her doing her actual job for them. She's amazing at making it sound like an enormous amount of work, but she'll help them out of the goodness of her heart. We now mostly work from home, and I'm fairly sure she's doing bugger all. But for years, we've reckoned when a new boss comes along, they get a brown envelope containing some secret information which stops any kind of performance management. It's both impressive and deeply irritating. Story 43. My boss, he's probably a nice bloke underneath it all, but he can't delegate for crap. He likes to oversee and get stuck into everything, but doesn't like to pass on the info he has. Loves micromanaging our work tasks. Often dictates word for word how we should write emails to people. Bizarrely, he starts his reply to every question with the word no. Loves to answer simple questions with long-winded explanations that are often repetitions of previous long-winded explanations. It's very tedious. He's away for the next 2 weeks, so all of us on his team are looking forward to getting on with work like the experienced, capable adults that we know we are. Story 44. So I hated him because he tried badly to fire me. He joined as a new manager. I was the supervisor, been there for 10 years. Basically, he didn't like me because I knew everything. Everyone knew the place, the client like the back of my hand. I ducked one day and he had me on a disciplinary. I'd shown him up several times and he didn't like it. So he was gonna get me. Funny thing is, we topes to a new company. They didn't like him. And after 2 weeks, they fired him. The discipline vanished, and so did he. Suck that, you. Story 45. New manager started a few months ago. He instantly tried to get rid of our hot water machine so no one would be able to have a cupper. Everyone flipped, so he kept it in. The company has a fridge for everyone to keep drinks in, and company purchased drinks that are for staff to share. He tried to claim the fridge and put it in his office, even though the manager has no knowledge whatsoever in the role he's doing or about the products we produce. He refuses to acknowledge advice from people with 30+ years experience in the company and has actually caused us to lose work because of his mistakes. Story 46. 1. In his 30s, but acts like a petulant 14-year-old when asked to do anything in his job role or asked not to do something that he shouldn't be doing. 2. Wastes time explaining to everyone why he's doing something a certain way rather than actually doing the thing in a fairly time-sensitive job role. 3. Tries to explain to people how to do their job despite them working there longer and already knowing what they're doing. 4. Inappropriately touched a 19-year-old colleague and tried to flirt with her despite it being inappropriate at work, the big age gap, and the fact he has a partner and children. Story 47. I wouldn't use hate, but can irritate me to the point of rage. We do exactly the same job, employed for the exact same thing. He makes everything 100 times more difficult. He doesn't listen. I'll say, we're doing A, B, and C today, that's it. And he'll then do D to Z. On the plus side, I've learned to be more forceful and say, no, we are not doing that. He's also one of those, don't worry, little miss, the man is here to help kind of men. It seems to infuriate him when I do something a man should be doing. He won't actually say anything to me, though. Story 48. I told Bill that if they move my desk one more time, then I'm quitting. I'm going to quit. And I told Don, too, because they've moved my desk 4 times already this year. And I used to be over by the window, and I could see the squirrels. And they were merry, but then they switched from the swing line to the Boston stapler. But I kept my swing line stapler because it didn't bind up as much. And I kept the staples for the swing line stapler. And it's not okay, because if they take my stapler, then I'll set the building on fire. Story 49. Whatever is important to him should be an instant priority. Very condescending and never says please or thank you. Worst offense recently is knocking on the door to my office whilst I have my headset on in a meeting, saying, "Are you in a meeting?" I nod and mouth yes. He then continues to talk or stands with his arms folded. This man is a peer, not a superior. Woman who makes her panic everyone else's panic. Leaves things to the last minute, then stresses out everyone around her with her craziness. Made multiple folk from different areas cry. Story 50. I don't hate anyone in work, but we've a few who irritate. One just never shuts the duck up during a conversation, which is basically just a monologue. They must breathe out of their arise. Fat person who smells. Too many ignorant S who will walk into the office first thing and not acknowledge you. This pisses me off more than anything else. Like how ducking hard is it to say good morning or hello. Every one of them is a millennial. Woman who is confidently incorrect far too often. She is so confident in her abilities and knowledge, but actually knows duck all. Story 51. I had a bloke who would be silent in meetings about procedure changes or tweaks to how we do things. Then as soon as we got out, would reel off reasons why it wouldn't work and that he wouldn't be doing it. He would also go on and on about some IT situation I knew little about and cared even less about. I just had to make encouraging noises and pretend to listen. He handed his notice in when a new manager came in and was younger than him. Didn't have a job to go to. Lived at home with his mom and dad. Story 52. Self-appointed manager. Will boss people around when she has absolutely zero authority to do so, all while acting like she's doing the most. Takes over other people's jobs. Ducking up how the day flows. Context, I work in a medical field where no 2 days are the same. Watch its TikTok. Videos out loud at lunchtime with no headphones. Complains about her health whilst eating terribly. I'm talking about that having a whole sticky toffee pudding at lunch on top of crisps and a sandwich. Makes impulsive purchases / financially unwise decisions while ignoring a massive debt she has built up. Is just very loud. Story 53. The newly promoted manager that was one of us, that now won't having anything to do with their former colleagues, has changed their mannerisms and demeanor to match with the higher-ups. Backs every single thing the director says without any pushback and generally brown noses the management. You were slagging them off and frustrated as hell 2 weeks ago. Now you're their attack dog. Give me a break. Story 54. Wouldn't say I've hated anyone I've ever worked with, but I've worked with more than my fair share of slackers and idiots. Sort of people who simply don't learn. Even after 6 months, you would think it was their first day. I work in a restaurant, so incompetent and lazy coworkers can make the job so much harder than it should be. I'm a pretty easygoing guy, but there's been 2 or 3 that come to mind that have caused me to lose my crap. One guy was so bad the whole kitchen staff refused to work with him. Story 55. Fortunately, she resigned, but it was at the point where I hated working with her and was thinking of leaving. She undermined me, She reframed my words to mean something else, then threw that thing back at me. She was rude, selfish, talked endlessly about herself, expected to start every meeting by having a check in which was her, talking about herself for 20 minutes, then no one saying much and nothing getting done. Her resigning made me so incredibly happy. So much toxicity in one human being. Story 56. Boss's friend used to moan constantly about another worker. When he retired, she needed a new target, and I got the short straw. Went from being her friend to her worst enemy overnight for no reason, publicly berating me for years on end and offering sweeties to everyone else in the office so they won't argue with her. I don't know what's worse, the abuse or the silent complicity from my other colleagues, so they don't get on the wrong side of her too. Story 57. The job I just left, quite a few, but to name two, one is just lazy, which is a massive pain as a teacher because they're in action, then makes it a problem I have to solve. Parents hounding you over issues she needs to solve, it is in the policy. The other never apologizes for a mistake. This wouldn't be a problem if he wasn't so good damn useless. I have never seen someone on SALT be so ineffective and visionless in Story 58. Not hate, but find deeply frustrating. There's a guy who frequently does half a job. He'll do the bits he doesn't mind doing, but forget the bits he doesn't like doing, and expect me / the other person in my team to do the bits he hasn't done. He has a hissy fit and gets very rude and childish when he's told he hasn't done something, despite being nearly 40. It's the meltdowns I mind the most. I don't have kids. I shouldn't have to deal with an adult acting like one at work. Story 59. The person that says they understand but don't understand and won't ask for help, even when it's so freaking obvious they don't get it. And you ask multiple times, and then when the thing should have been done, you have to explain the thing again, but now you're just gonna do the work. Because I'm not waiting another 3 weeks for something that I could have done in 5 minutes but didn't, because someone else needs to learn how to do it. But maybe next time, right? Story 60. That one guy that drones on and on in meetings. He's good at his job, but a terrible communicator. He has really loud tantrums and scares people a bit. Story 61. The lazy git. I don't mean the one who has lost the will to live because of monotonous work or someone who rightfully refuses to do certain jobs because they're not paid enough. I mean the one who creates more work for their colleagues because they can't be arked doing it themselves. They avoid jobs and pass them on to other people. The kind of people who probably visit the toilet for an extended period of time when it's their turn to get the round in. Throw them in the sea. Story 62. She made a big thing when she first joined the team as my manager, that she was blunt. I can handle blunt. She's not blunt. She's the most passive-aggressive person I've ever met and thinks I should stay late after work without overtime pay, even when I've got nothing that urgently needs doing, so that people in other teams with completely different work from ours, don't wonder why I'm not staying late, even though our mutual boss has explicitly told us he doesn't expect us to do that. Story 63. No hate, just think he's pretty useless. In a team meeting, every minute, you hear a come from him. He has to be told multiple times and in various different ways how to do the basic parts of his job. He'll tattle to the boss if you take a longer break, but not when he does it. Just a lot of little things that make him altogether annoying to work with. Story 64. She never ever stops complaining. She tells everyone everything about all her ailments, including her colonoscopy results while we were having lunch. No one asked. Whatever we're eating, she tells us she can't eat that. It's all lunches we've brought in from home. I started eating ridiculously late in order to avoid her, or going to the rubbish cafe instead. The complaining isn't just about her diet, it's everything. I did a happy dance when I heard she was leaving my city. Story 65. Oh, you just triggered mildly discomfiting memories of this colleague I've not seen in ages. I'll start by saying, don't hate them. Just really not a fan of working with them at all. You know that one person who talks to everyone like they're thick, and they're the only one who knows how to do things right, their way, like walking on goddamned eggshells when talking to them, all the time. Gets a right ball ache when you're working 12 hours with them. Story 66. Worked in a fairly niche sales environment for a number of years, only to have a new sales manager come in and try and tell everyone that anyone could sell what we do. His team tanked hard within about 4 months, and at our annual sales conference, Doodad, when presenting about how to position our products in the market, he died on his arise. Cut short by the owner of the business, he was binned within a fortnight of the event. Useless ducker with stupid sales lingo. Story 67. There's a certain woman at work that's just annoying. She brings her dog in every single day. She also has referred to me as the office Karen because I do all the jobs people think they're good for, like putting up computer screens, fixing computers, taking out the bins, calling the repair people when things go wrong, sorting out anything that needs doing, really. I laugh it off, though, as she earns nearly half I do. Story 68. It was more like dislike at one of the places. Just because I was on placement did not mean I had to run all the errands. Just because two of my colleagues disliked the post office staff, the boss had no problems with them. Also running to get their sandwich orders, the boss told my colleagues to get their own sandwiches instead of me having to do it also. One of my colleagues used to have pull my finger gag, story 69. Not hate, but there are two people at work who just cannot say sorry. They're bad at what they do, so they make a lot of mistakes, which then other people have to clean up. Instead of saying sorry and let everyone move on, they spend time of theirs and everyone else's defending themselves from attacks that no one is giving them. These people are a classic bad example of what's important is how you recover and learn from mistakes, not to avoid making one. Story 70. He is paid more than me for the same role just because he has been there longer. He hasn't contributed anything towards meeting the team goals for the past 2 years. Turns up late for meetings, if at all. No idea where he is half the time. And in any other company, he would have been out ages ago. I just try to make sure he doesn't touch my projects because the last time he did it had a negative impact. Story 71. Hate is a very strong word, but I can't stand the guy who makes really sexist remarks all the time to myself and the other female coworkers. When called out on it, he claims it's due to cultural differences. He is one of many Muslim members of the organization and has lived in the UK since he was a child, and he is now in his 40s. Story 72. Started at the same time with similar experience. I'm permanent and they are temporary. They then get promoted so that they become permanent, as staff retention is an issue in this place. Joys of being a nurse. They spend their days rolling around on the floor. I wish I was joking. While I have to clear up their shoddy work. Especially when our manager tells me to work harder as she is my superior and I'm there to support her. Story 73. Not hate that's too strong, as we do get along quite well. More like irritates me. Everything is black and white. They have no people skills when it comes to motivating the staff and will literally run to the manager over everything. They are also extremely stubborn. Even though I've done the job longer and know the path of least resistance, it's either their way or the highway. But as a person, we get along quite well and have a laugh. Story 74. The super manipulative, sociopathic interloper who whined her way onto our team and who is the sort who would have happily forced people into gas chambers for a small pay rise. She is still nice to me face to face because she doesn't know I'm onto her, but her phone calls for urgent help are getting more perfunctory. She can't be bothered to be polite once she's got her answer. She will hit real trouble very soon and I will not be there for her. Story 75. Asks too many questions and is generally nosy about things that don't concern them. Announces my arrival, departure, and whatever time it is to everyone in the office. Reports every little thing I do. Say, plays the radio on some crappy station. Story 76. He is one of those people who functions as an addition by subtraction. Everything is easier when he isn't there. Lazy, incompetent, but also confident. Completely useless. Story 77. Because he's a dirty git. Constantly chomping on his fingers. Leaves use straws all over the chopping boards. Uses the ice that's been used to chill wine for drinks and never puts bottles away after using them, so he slows me down because I can't find them when I need them. Pint anyone? He sees me as been over the top, but the reality is that he's terribly unhygienic, and to make matters worse, he's the manager. Story 78. My two worst colleagues were the one who yelled all the time, angry, bitter women, and the other one, always calling to give a message she forgot, wannabe leader of the whole thing, showed our kids dirty pictures, got reported, nothing happened, and then she got a 30,000 raise. Context, our kids. Migrant asylum seekers in Norway awaiting answers from the government. 3 months later, I was over and out. Story 79. Because no matter what we're talking about when she arrives, she just starts talking about what she wants to talk about, butting in mid-sentence. And it's always the same conversations. We've been told about her not having curtain poles up in her new house and her getting the stairs repainted every day for the last 3 weeks. It sucks the life out of everyone. To the point now I avoid her at all costs. Story 80. She's late 30s and English. About 5 years ago, she started talking with an American Valley girl accent and a vocal fry. I can't even listen to her talk. Story 81. Had one guy on my shift, was a coward who would never have the confrontation that was needed but would block the passageway/road so no one else could step in, solve the problem, and then criticize him for his inaction. I also got a malicious complaint, and he made up that he had witnessed me do something else just to add to my stress. Fortunately, was quickly told to shut the duck up. Story 82. She is incredibly vain, borderline alcoholic, and thinks she is the main character. She has 3 children, and so blatantly favors her son. It makes me feel sad for the others. She recently got quite a big promotion, and the way she talks to other staff members is insufferable. Everyone says how up her own ass she is, but nobody dare say anything lest she go off for 6 months again to protect her peace. Stories 83. That one guy that's slightly deaf but refuses to believe it or get anything done about it, and also loves the sound of their own voice, has to stand in your own personal space to tell you all about it, has an option on everything, and knows everything and everyone, has done it all before. Good forbid you know something about the thing they are talking about. Story 84. Boss gave him preferential treatment because they shared the same religion. He knew very little about what he was doing, but would say things with confidence, so could fool a lot of people. Did very little work himself, but palmed it off onto everyone else. Just generally none of us work there anymore, but he left before I did. Was glad when he pissed off. Story 85. She literally only refers to the highest level person in the university on the hierarchy as her boss. She's literally on the lowest rung of the ladder. There's not one person below her and 3 layers of manager above her before she gets to this person, the DVC, and she still throws around her name like they work at the same desk. Lady, get over yourself. Her secretary has more power than you. Story 86. Only ever hated one guy at work. Bloke was just genuinely rude to everyone he met. He'd ask you to do things by saying, do dis. I suspect he was a bit mentally impaired, but it became unbearable to work with someone who struggled to follow basic instructions and commanded you around like he was your boss. Story 87. Because she's a lying liar who lies. She will ask you for help and throw it in your face. Will say, how do you do this? Will do the complete opposite of what you should then say, well, Yahshua helped me. It's her fault. If you don't help her, she will cry and saying she's being isolated, bearing in mind I don't help because of the situation above. She's 55. Story 88. I have a technical role, and this guy is my counterpart on the business side. Every ducking meeting, when I answer a technical question, he will answer it again, but add a ton of extra bullcrap. Every ducking time. Same answer always, but fluffed up. What's the ducking point? I'm a pretty calm person, but he has made me want to throw my laptop at the wall a few times. Story 89. He only talks about himself, has never asked me a single question about me or my life, and has a better example of everything under discussion. Been to Paris? He had a one-person guided tour of the Eiffel Tower by the chief architectural engineer. Enjoy reading? He's had lunch with the author. And despite knowing him for 5 years, if he sees me in the street, he doesn't recognize me. Story 90. Don't really hate anyone in my current job. Guy in my last job had been a kip for like a year and a half, finally persuaded the manager to let him bartend, then instantly started acting like he was the boss of everyone. Would given him crap in return, but he was ginger, so his life was already hard enough. Story 91. Had this woman who used to breathe very heavily and while stay on the phone, shout, she always had her nose in my work business too, despite having nothing to do with me. Got to the stage I couldn't even look at her. She was sick in a flower pot during a work party. From that moment I thought being a team player wasn't that necessary. Story 92. There's no need to talk that loudly to someone who is sitting right next to you, especially in an open plan office. Especially when you're complaining that you shouldn't have to pay tax on the shares daddy got you. Story 93. Not hate, just tired of. They used to be a head teacher, and every conversation ends in how hard it was when they worked at a school. Not ragging on teachers because it is hard, but half of the stuff they come out with is dross. It's just shoehorning it in at every opportunity. It's still all of their identity, and it's doing my head in. Story 94. I don't hate them, but some of the things they do frustrate me. He coughs a lot. No issue with that on its own, as he may not be able to help it. But it's the fact if someone else makes a bit more noise than usual or sneezes, coughs, etc., he's the first person to complain. Just completely unaware. Story 95. Brown nosers and sycophants. Get my goat. We have a temp with us that previously climbed so far. Every manager's arise, his toenails were barely visible. He's doing it again. Plus states he would throw anyone under a bus for a full-time job. Utter Story 96. That guy at work talked to me like I am out of university with 0 experience, while my CV would say otherwise and better than his in many ways. I complained to my manager about it. He said, not sure what you are complaining about. He talks to me like a 10 years old. Okay, so it's all relative then. Story 97. I used to hate him until I realized he isn't worth the energy. Now I just look at him blankly when we meet. He gets ignored as if he doesn't even exist. He's a closet racist. I know this because another colleague told me his views and shared content on his phone, which confirmed. Explains why he's really friendly with everyone except for me. Story 98. Not my current employer, but many moons ago I had a line manager who was just useless. Decent enough as a bloke to have a beer with outside work, and technically proficient, but had 0 ability in managing people. Micromanaged issues which were not relevant and was not there to offer appropriate support and feedback when presenting proposals to senior management/exec board. Story 99. Our head of business unit. His background is project management and we are it. He basically spends his time in shock that a short staff team with a reduced budget take time to do things and seems to spend his time asking why things take so long. The answer is nearly always resources. He promoted me but didn't give me a pay rise. Story 100. Reading some comments just solidifies I'm probably just overly sensitive. Don't hate the guy, but definitely dislike him. Feel he purposely ignores my opinion or rewords it and claims as his own. I think he has a filter where he is just choosing to not treat me the same way as he treats others. Who's the one person everyone hates at your work? Story 1. We had this one guy at my old place. We had a big warehouse merger which merged 2 warehouses and 3 companies into one after a big company bought them all. Needless to say, there were crossover job titles and too many staff covering the work, especially at the warehouse supervisor level. There was always a joke about how our warehouse covered the work of the other warehouse, which was basically confirmed after they moved in, and we heard about the amount of work they do and firsthand and took over their workload. Anyways, this one warehouse supervisor basically found himself with nothing to do. I was a supervisor for my department and had 3 guys working under me. The only thing this guy could do is create a list of items not pulled for jobs going out the next day from the database. 99% of the time, this was because the item due to go out, we were an event equipment hiring company, was due back the same day as was due out, and due to be turned around the same day to be sent out. Needless to say, department supervisors knew of this, and it was standard procedure, and the database will always show its missing form. The job as the barcode wasn't allocated. He used to come around with his flip chart, and before he could get a word in, I'd tell him the kit missing, where it's coming from, turnaround timings, and where it was due to go. He just didn't have a job anymore, but still wanted that little bit of power above everyone. He was also a consistent liar. Story 2. I work with a bloke who's in his late 30s, and he's super morbidly obese. He seems to have never washed a day in his life. His uniform is always stained with black, oily grease, with food and other filth. He always has food around his chops and will not talk about anything else other than food. However, he absolutely stinks. Really, he ducking stinks, to the point where the thick stench lingers in the air. We've all raised our concerns with him very politely, but he absolutely refuses to acknowledge it. We've asked him if everything is okay at home, if he was struggling mentally, if his family were going through a hard time. He says everything is perfect in his life and doesn't seem to understand that he needs to shower daily and regularly wash his uniform. He does absolutely no work throughout the duration of his shift. Whenever someone complains to management about him, and the response is always the same, well, because of his size, he can't get as much done as others. Okay, that's very true. I can fully understand that he isn't able to achieve as much as everyone else. But what I don't understand is, what is the point in employing someone who clocks in, then spends their shift aimlessly shuffling about the shop floor? He creates far more work for everyone else, is paid the exact same as everyone else, and that's why everyone hates him. Story 3. For me, it's the boss who, without a doubt, is a first class, who overworks me all the time, shows me little to no respect, and doesn't allow me days off sick or even paid holidays. It's strange because his wife seems very nice, reasonable, and I get on very well with her. I suppose that's the downside of being self-employed. Story 4. I work in engineering, and there's a distinct type of person who thinks they have a deep technical knowledge, but in reality, they're pretty thick. In techie professions, there can be a culture of ego-driven attempts to outsmart colleagues or undermine them. It's basically the nerdy equivalent of swinging. A lot of these folk can think of nothing better than being able to quote some detail of a regulation better than someone else. Problem is, we have idiots just like every other profession, but they think they're Stephen Hawking. They love to correct people, but they're also ducking dents and usually get it wrong. I like to call it incorrecting, when they butt into a conversation to correct you, except they're actually wrong. It's always so frustrating to talk about my own area of expertise, only to have someone from a different department interject to tell me I'm wrong. Although it's always satisfying to then Google it and show them they're wrong. If it wasn't so frequent and annoying, it would be sad. The incorrectors have all the drawbacks of being a nerd, poor social skills, crap at sports, weird demeanor. I say that as an engineer myself. Yet they don't have the actual benefit of being smart either. They're just low IQ pedants. So yeah, other STEM workers, do you know people that like to butt in and incorrect you? Story 5. A weird little religious cleaner. Loud, mouthy, always wanted to be the center of attention. She totally played mind games with people too. Wound people up in her last position, then started her carry-on at our site. She caused 2 people to leave, and another left just as she got transferred from another site. As one of the staff said, "Watch her, she's a bad one." No one liked her, she caught meningitis, and only 5 people sent money for flowers. She totally sucked up the boss's arise, and the regional managers too. Not a nice person, but kept saying how she was a good Christian woman, and on her first day, told everyone her sexual history with her husband. She got off on passive-aggressively winding people up with veiled jibes. She made a fellow cleaner cry by saying bad words about trans, the cleaner's sister's non-binary. She also watched an older member of staff in the car park eat his lunch in his car. Security saw her spying on him. She also spread false rumors one of the guys on the site was a pedo because she didn't like him, which was cruel as duck because the guy was struggling with long-term grief of his wife dying. She was one of the worst people I've ever worked with. She moved on to another job and has probably caused trouble there as well. Story 6. Oh boy, it's this woman who derails any and all well-being discussions, but refuses to do anything that requires to put effort in. I have a dose requirement as I get migraines at work at least once a week, but it's not a proper DSE requirement to her because to her proper ones are musculoskeletal only. Then proceeded to list each and every issue she had. She doesn't like working in the office because she doesn't think it supports her requirements. Fair, but then wouldn't do the self-assessment for help. Doesn't like working from home as it's lonely. Thinks she should have an allocated desk, which you do via the self-assessment, but then doesn't want to be tied to specific days to come in. Doesn't want to ask people to move if they are sitting on an allocated desk. Her solution? Get rid of loads of office furniture, I'm talking about a meeting table, and make that an area specifically for our team to use, fully fitted with desks and equipment. Bearing in mind, nobody in our entire building has an allocated area. When she was joining the team, 6 different people were like, oh boy. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. They were right. Story 7. We have one guy whose entire personality is being devil's advocate. He will attempt to derail every discussion with some contentious opinion just because. More often than not, he doesn't even hold these opinions himself. He's merely putting them forward. What makes it worse is that his communication skills are awful. A simple sentence can be strung out for multiple minutes as he likes and his way through whatever wildly irrelevant bollocks he's spouting at the time. Piecing together the point he's trying to make from all the filler is utterly painful, especially so as when you do work out what he is talking about, it is almost always a waste of everyone's time. Story 8. Lisa. She's stuck up, thinks she's Madonna and Ken, her husband, is so wooden if he got lost in BD he'd probably be sold. Lisa's the kind of person that if your family member died and you needed time off, she'd go on how her family member and cat and toaster died, but she was able to drag herself into work. Don't be like Lisa. Story 9. Nobody at my current work. I work with a tiny wee team and they're lovely. At my last job, it was my direct line manager. Absolute nightmare of a woman. Had clearly been picked for a managerial position purely because she had been on the project for longest and had no managerial skills. This was a problem throughout the whole organization though. She had an implausible number of successful careers in everything from fashion to finance, which just made her sound like she was bullcrafting all the time. She used to take personal calls from her son, who would call her during work hours to moan about petty crap that didn't require a call to mummy. Of course, when she found out that I was the same age as her son, she started treating me like I was incompetent, questioning all my decisions and suddenly requiring sign-off for every little thing I did. I think it's just because her son's life was such a mess. She assumed other 25-year-olds were like him and needed constant supervision. Nobody had a good word to say about her. Story 10. The one middle management boss that in absolutely every meeting decides she is much closer to being a director than a manager. The moment a meeting starts, she changes her voice, her mannerisms. She always sits next to the higher-ups, purposefully creates a physical gap between herself and the less senior members. She agrees 100% with every single thing a superior will say, makes zero contribution at all, offers no ideas or solutions. Then after every substantive uttering by a senior director, she'll paraphrase what has just been said, or verbatim, to people below her, as though she has to translate what has just been said. It's nauseating. She's a total try-hard, and worse than that, she's a shirker. She doesn't actually do any work. She irritates everyone in the office, but assumes it's because she's making tough decisions that people don't like. But she isn't. Everyone just hates her. Story 11. My recently newly appointed team leader. Absolute stickler for getting things done how she wants. No matter if there's an easier way, or the other party doesn't actually care about minute details. Nitpicks to try, catch people out with mistakes. Bullies one of my team colleagues through intimidation and aggression. The girl is very timid and going through anxiety. A million U-turns when the majority of members on the team don't agree with something she wants. Gets annoyed when we chat. We've seen Karen-y emails about it, but loves to talk about herself till the cows come home. Tells people in the office to shut up if it's too noisy in her mind. Has a track record of ending up in shouting matches with previous colleagues who didn't like her attitude. Worst part is that while she does her job okay, she isn't actually that great and asks us for regular guidance and input. There is so much more, but I get angry just thinking about her when not at work. Story 12. For me, it's the new girl who started at our hair salon, puts in no effort, skips meetings and outings, is late every day and leaves early, calls out sick when she isn't, goes to the bathroom every 5 minutes, or leaves for 2 hours without going on break because it's not busy, sits there on her phone when there's clients waiting, and when she does cut hair, she sucks at it. On top of that, she then complains about not having enough money when she literally doesn't put in the effort to make money. She has been here just 2 months, but all of us hate her so much. We normally have a very happy and healthy workplace. Everyone gets along and it's like a second family. But this lady, everyone talks crap about her when she's not there, and we've made complaints to our boss about her. But she is too nice to fire her. The thing is, she's a really sweet and nice lady, but she's so lazy, it's unbelievable. Story 13, my boss. The director is only a director because of nepotism, has no directorial skills/knowledge. The skill set they actually have, they refuse to use. So currently, the bank account is draining like water in a sieve. I lost my interest in the business when I saw the true colors show from the management, and being treated as a silly little girl, lost every bit of respect for them. So now I come on Reddit, apply for jobs, talk to friends, and I'm doing the bare minimum to not get me fired/cause issue. The job itself would be a good one if the director was actually a decent person rather than someone pretending to be a decent person. As soon as I've got some bits sorted, and I can, I'm handing in my notice and going part-time elsewhere to freelance. I have even considered doing this job PT, since I can do everything in a matter of hours. But as already said, story 14, wouldn't say hated, but there's a young girl, 19 to 20, that we all try and avoid talking to. She's nice enough and always cheerful and smiley, but the problem is when you actually try to have a conversation with her, she whips out her phone and starts texting people. You'll be mid-conversation and she'll pull out her phone and start texting while saying, "I am listening," but then has no understanding of what you said. Maybe it's because we are all a little older, late 28 plus, but everyone just finds it unbelievably rude. It's basically saying, "I don't give a duck what you're saying. I'd rather talk to someone else." But seeing my little sister and her friends talk, they all do it, so maybe it's just an age thing. Story 15. He's a team leader that'll expect help from everyone, will never offer help to anyone, and even refuse to help. He asked me to come in 90 minutes early, and I agreed to help him out. That literal same shift, I asked if he could stay 15 minutes extra so I could do some admin work, or if he could do that admin work and he couldn't wait to say no. He leaves early yet will manually clock himself out on time once he's at home, because we can add our clock in/out times manually on our phone because we're management. All of management hate him because he just doesn't do the job properly. But all of the other people at work love him because he doesn't tell them what to do, so he just seems like an easygoing guy. Story 16. Vicky, an absolutely vile person, had that way of saying normal words, but the tone of her voice screamed, "I'm a snarky, rude, selfish, just generally vile." And our workplace had 150 employees, and generally everyone got on with everyone. Vicky just couldn't do that. She was considerably richer than you, her car was better than yours, and her son did so well at school. He's handsome and so clever. She used to be a big shot estate agent, whatever the duck that is. Just awful. She left as soon as shielding ended, saying she couldn't run back to the office. On the plus side, she who the whole of COVID. Story 17. I'm not there anymore, but there was a guy that was shifty as hell. Friendly on the surface, but he was always trying to set people up. He even caused a pretty serious accident, but because it was a verbal instruction over the phone and the guy taking the instruction, who was injured, deviated from the system in writing to follow the instruction, it was deemed that there was no proof. He also tried to get a bunch of people to resign because they were job at risk. When someone called HR for advice, it turned out that he was pulling a fast one. He got his wrists slapped for that one. Story 18. Some guy called Alan. I just started, but my coworkers always go off about how much they dislike Alan. Thing is, we work shifts, and I'll never overlap with Alan for any of my handovers and have never met him. All of the other shiftiest will have crossovers with him. I've asked what is so bad about him, but the answers I get are along the lines of, "It'll take too long to explain," or just everything. I don't press further so we can talk about other things instead of just them going on another Alan rant. Story 19. Everyone at my work hates our colleague. Even my 2 line managers hate her, and the senior managers too. She's hardly ever in work, citing medical reasons for her absences, but in reality she's faint. I was going to explain more, but it turned into a bit of a rant, but I really do hate her. She's just a selfish, arrogant, rude, narrow-minded individual who has been playing the system now for 5 years and is still getting away with it. She's so bad that she's managed to chase away around 9 people during those 5 years, as they've all said that she was a big factor in their decision to leave. Story 20. A guy who made a new girl cry after witnessing an accident that usually all would ignore. The old worker just laughed it off and calmed down the girl. This guy waited an hour and came up to her, threatened to report it if she didn't self-report. The girl went into tears and went to the old worker. He calmed her down again and went to the office. They asked him why he didn't report it an hour earlier. Not many people were left who still liked the guy after this. The general rule on our shift is to not report anything unless it's a major incident. Story 21. Mostly everyone hated this middle-aged woman who used to be with the big boss of our section. Well, he cheated on her with someone else in a different section some years ago, but they both kept working together. Recipe for disaster. Everyone was, of course, sympathetic. That is until she began to draw in a few other women around her. Caring about everyone so much, they became known as the Coven. She would endlessly complain about how much work she had to do, but when she went off sick for a couple of months, I had to take over her work and found she hadn't actually been doing her work. Story 22. Lad called Stefan, thinks he's better than the people one level below him. Constantly asks the higher-ups out for lunch and drinks after work when the whole team is there and everyone gets along. Basically a bum chum of the other people in his time, and his social skills are diabolical. You give him a call to pass on work he can do to him, and he says, "What do you want?" "Sorry, mate, just doing my job." Sometimes he can be all right to chat to, but the majority of time he is loud and annoying, and when he talks to people on the phone, I cringe. Story 23. The department director's assistant. She's not strictly a PA, she has a fancier job title than that. Her main job seems to be putting long meetings in everyone's calendar that achieve nothing, contributing nothing to said meetings, making everyone collectively put together massive PowerPoint presentations that look pretty, but have zero meaningful content, and nobody of any importance will actually read. Then she will critique people's slides in the aforementioned pointless meetings. And if anybody questions the importance of any of the above, she will just name drop the director until the person shuts up. All while knowing basically nothing about the industry she is working in. Story 24. Facilities lady. It takes 3 to 5 emails for any request for her to actually do her job to get her to accept that it is, in fact, her job. She also CCs herself into any email she replies to. I have no idea why. If you get to 4 replies, she starts CCing her manager, your manager, and sometimes the higher-ups. Most requests would take 5 minutes per one phone call to sort. She will also wait as any meeting is about to end and comment, "It's all about communication, every signal damn time." Story 25. Richard. He's one of the senior managers at our company. Has absolutely no idea what our jobs are or how we do them, yet insists on sitting in on our meeting. He is incredibly rude to the team when we explain what we do and how we do it, and the reasons for our workflow processes. He consistently interrupts during the portion of the meetings when we're reporting daily figures of tasks that need done that day. He even ignores the women in the team when we're speaking because he doesn't think we have anything useful to say. Story 26. Last company I worked for, it was the boss's son. Only got a job because no one else would hire him. Decided after a month the stress was too much, so he had to travel Asia for a year at daddy's expense to find himself. Came back just as wank as before he left. 10 years down the line, he's still a tossed. His old man retired and left him a quite successful company, and now he's running it into the ground. Story 27. There's one guy who doesn't know when to shut up. We'll be in a meeting with 500 people where he's just a spectator, and he'll talk over the speaker to say he's got to leave, but take 5 minutes over it. If I join a meeting and he's in it, I just feel a sense of dread. Feels a bit harsh and would never say anything as maybe he has something wrong with him, but it's just infuriating. Story 28, a guy called Andy, who despite dealing with the public all day, decided to stop brushing his teeth after 4 or 5 months of him smiling at Mr. and Mrs. Public with his green and yellow tombstones. The boss gave him an extra large pay packet with a toothbrush and toothpaste inside. Luckily, the hint was taken. It wasn't so much we hated Andy, just we tried never to get close to him. Story 29. I work in care. One carer is early 20s, and no one likes working with her because she flaps, and she wanders around, which means she ends up wasting time not doing anything. On top of that, she can have a real attitude. Like agency staff has threatened not to come back if they had to work with her again. Weird thing is, I'm actually friends with her outside of work because she's a nice girl. However, as soon as she clocks in, it's like she changes into a different person. Story 30, most of them work in the care industry, and they're all older women who have mean girl complex. Everyone hates the one who is openly bullying others, but about her codes. At least she's obvious about it. I ducking hate the ones who are just like the bully but hide it well. Only show those ducking nasty sides to certain staff because they know they can get away with it. Story 31. There's a guy in our office who just has to one-up everyone. If you saw a cool film at the weekend, he was part of the production, and he's best mates with all of the actors. They frequent the same bars. If you cooked an awesome lasagna last night, he'll tell you about that time he was offered a Michelin star but turned it down as it isn't his full-time gig. You get the idea, he's not very popular. Story 32. Our project manager, my entire team, and my direct manager are the most insanely lovely people to work with, but that guy sticks his nose in so many things he shouldn't. Produces convoluted schedules. You need arcane magic to decode, and literally leaves zero contingency for any absence, problems, or just tasks taking longer. When nobody in the team is entirely sure what the point of view is. You know, that's a bad sign. Story 33. I not use their name, but one person at work caused a crapload of trouble for everyone else and even made false accusations against other staff just to get a slight pay rise. When our manager found out, we told them that their behavior is unacceptable, to which the individual replied, "I don't give a duck about anyone here, only myself." So now everyone hates them. This person was willing to get people fired for a small ducking pay rise. Story 34. Not someone I have to interact with, fortunately, but sometimes in the same office is a loudmouth who can't seem to grasp the concept of a shared working space. His schedule seems to be something like this: 9 a.m. Yell about another team, telling them they could go duck themselves. 11 a.m. Yell at a guy in his team about his timesheet. 1 p.m. Yell on the phone to a mate about the messy divorce he's going through. Wonder why your marriage failed, mate. Story 35. The bully. Manages through fear and intimidation. Doesn't hide the fact that's how they work, but covers it up just enough as not to appear overtly aggressive that HR would get involved. The bullying is just a facade for incompetence and low self-esteem. Story 36. We had a guy who would exclusively speak in long words that could have been easily replaced with shorter, more common words. Sounded like he'd eaten a dictionary, and he was vomiting it back up. It was super frustrating because I worked with a few people who had English as their second language, and my job required communication to be solid. Half the time I had no ducking idea what he was saying, and I'm a native English speaker. Story 37. An HR person of old. The most vile, toxic, downright unpleasant person I have ever met. Incompetent, envious, complete failure to deliver on anything, insincere, obnoxious, prone to tears when called out, which was rare as she was also aggressive and bullying. Absolutely hateful. Still makes me anxious when I think about her. Still in the job as far as I'm aware. I get on with most people, but I wouldn't piss on that Karen if she was on fire. What's a job you've done where everyone hates you, but you're literally just doing your job? Story 1. Quality control. Look, man, I can't let this product go out the door because it'll be a recall. Just make this one little change that'll take you like 10 seconds to do, and I promise I'll leave you alone. You don't even have to get up. I know that you can make this change from the computer at your desk. Then I put down in my little log that I told them about the problem, so that when they keep making crap, and we have to scrap another couple $1 million of product, I can say, I told you so. Just make good product, and I'll leave you alone. That's all there is to quality control. Story 2. Customer service. You take the heat for any bad experience someone had with the company, even though it had nothing to do with you. And if company policy prohibits you from giving them the restitution that would make them happy, that's your fault too. Story 3. Cybersecurity. You are just enforcing the company policy and stopping them from doing dumb crap. I've had people argue about the stupidest stuff. Why can't I reinstall Windows 7 on my computer instead of the company-managed Windows 10? Why can't I watch pirated movies from some dodgy website? I'm on break. Why can't I use her password while she's on vacation? Why can't I store critical company data in my personal cloud account or on my personal devices? Story 4. College bookstore sales associate. I mean, they don't really hate me, but they hate buying textbooks. Listen, I know you're mad that textbooks are giddically expensive. I know that you're mad you bought a book for $200 and can only sell it back for $50. We know you're mad that the textbook's publisher changed 5 words in a book and then put it out as a new edition, rendering the previous one worthless. All valid complaints, but it's not the bookstore's fault. The college's various departments are the ones who tell us what books to carry. They're the ones who tell us to switch over to a new edition with barely anything new in it. The publishers are the ones who set the ridiculous prices, and we have to upsell the books at least a little bit if we want to make any sort of profit. And you can't imagine how frustrating it is when we buy hundreds of a certain book back from students for a reasonable price, then get told last minute by the departments that they've decided to switch books, meaning we just shelled out hundreds of dollars for used books that are now worthless to us. The only one who benefits from the college textbook publishing industry is the publisher, especially because they reap all the profits from taking advantage of the students and make the bookstores take all the heat. Story 5. Being a cop, I've literally gotten dispatched to people's homes because their neighbor hears someone getting domestically abused. I knock on the door and notice that the wife has a black eye and bloody lip. I arrest the husband, and then the wife proceeds to attack me for arresting her husband. Wife gets arrested, kids get social services called on them. Then in court, they argue that they wouldn't have been arrested if the neighbors just minded their own business. Then they release the husband, and the wife goes back to getting beat. We go back the following month, arrest and repeat. I've also walked into businesses just to do community interactions, and people are always like, is someone in trouble, or is everything good? I'm just like, every reaction with a cop has to be a negative one. We're humans also, and it's nice to just interact with people in a positive way. Story 6. Automotive mechanic at a dealership/chain shops. 90% of the time it was a thankless and underpaid job. The vast majority of customers do not want to be there. Hate the fact that they have to spend money on their disgusting cars that they absolutely abuse and do not take care of. Think that you are ripping them off, always scrutinizing you. Want their crap fixed yesterday? And think you're just a dirty grease monkey that couldn't do any better? Leaving the trade and going into the heavy-duty world was the best thing I ever did. Now I work on automotive crap at home in my own garage, on my own schedule, and can pick and choose who I do work for and what I work on. Story 7. I'm a hospital secretary in ICU. I can't let visitors in without a patient code. We don't permit more than 2 visitors at a time unless the patient is end of life. We do not permit fresh flowers as we oftentimes have transplant patients on the unit. We often don't allow visitors under the age of 16 unless they are immediate family, kids, siblings, or the patient is end of life. I can't provide updates to strangers. Oftentimes I can't answer any questions at all. I can transfer you to the nurse though, if you have the patient code. I can't do anything about that. Physicians get mad at me for enforcing the hand hygiene policy. Foam in, foam out, every time. It's literally not hard. But they feel like they don't need to listen to me because I am the secretary. Nurses get mad that I audit for fall risks. Apparently placing a fall risk wristband on their patients takes too much time. Every day I'm yelled at. By patients, their families, the nurses, the residents, and occasionally the attendings. I smile and nod and do my 12 hours. I'm not confrontational, but people will continue to have their own perceptions of me for doing my job. Story 8. I've been a telemarketer. It was the best paying job I could get at the time and place. This was over 20 years ago before every unrecognized number was a scam call. In my time, I hawked Discover cards, long-distance plans, and dial-up internet services. For the most part, people were just understandably annoyed. Some were downright ruthless. In many cases, I get it. Running out of leads, the managers would recycle the numbers of people who didn't clearly say no, and we'd call them 3 to 4 times a night. I've also been a payroll clerk in the military. Generally, if you needed to see me, it was a bad day for you. Got a lot of hate from people who thought they could get by with keeping entitlements they didn't rate. Boy, do they get pissed when you take the money back that they were trying to steal. Looking me dead in the eye like I'm the bad guy. When you didn't report your divorce 2 years ago, thinking you could get away with an extra $30,000. But now that you got a new wife and stepkid that need insurance, you're pissed that I'm stealing what you stole, and it's unfair that you're not going to get a paycheck for the next year. Story 9. I worked for my state's liquor authority, regulating bars, liquor stores, grocery stores, discos, etc. We were poorly managed, and everybody hated us. The general public, license applicants, business owners, etc. Story 10. Project coordinator/lean manufacturing. It's crazy how pissed off people get when you try to make their jobs easier. My job is to simplify their process to reduce waste. Wasted time, steps, material, etc. If they need something to be more efficient, it's my job to research the hell out of it and make a decision on whether or not the expenditure is worth the time, money, and effort to invest in. We seriously have a guy that will generate a PO, print said PO, walk across the building, roughly 200 feet, to a printer, then scan the PO back to himself, throw the printed PO in the trash, then walk back to his desk to email the PO that he just printed to scan himself, that originated on the computer he emailed it from. I've tried countless times to explain the amount of waste in time, effort, paper, toner, etc., and have even shown him how to save the PO to his computer and email as an attachment. Still can't get through to him, and he thinks I'm an idiot. People hate change, regardless if it's an improvement or can save them time. Story 11. I used to work for Home Depot's merchandising execution team. Basically, our job was to go into the stores in our district and make sure the shelves and displays were set to vendor specs. Vendors pay a lot of money and expect things to be set a certain way. We had a couple of store employees and managers who thought they knew better and would wait until we left and completely reset our bays. The problem was that sometimes reps would stop in at weird hours and see that the planogram was not set, but that we had signed off on it, and we'd get Karen'd at. The next time I was in that store, I told the store employee that kept resetting my bays that I was going to send a picture of the set bay to our rep and to our district management, and that if he wanted to continue undoing my work, he was going to end up out of a job. He cried to the store manager, who careened at me and then got chewed out by my manager. Story 12. Air nurse. Not everyone hates you, but a large amount do. People are impatient, think the world revolves around them, think you're their personal servant, demand to see the doctor right away when they stub their toe. My response was, I'm sorry, but the person nearest to death gets seen first. And then people yelled at me about the cost and the bill and how we're scamming them for money. Yeah, I get paid hourly, so that has nothing to do with me. So take it up with the US system. And then sometimes other staff gets pissed at you because it's just a high-stress environment. Glad I'm done with it. Story 13. Security. People don't see you helping folks, pulling passed-out people from the pit, handing out water, securing an event and its patrons, stopping idiot from hurting people, protecting the artists. They remember the guy who confiscated their crap, the idiot on the power trip, the over-the-top rule enforcer. People don't know that you dislike the way most of your coworkers do the job. They don't know you used to go to concerts and now just want to listen to music and help people have a good time. They just see your shirt. I worked an all-male gay event once, where all kinds of things were happening that otherwise could not. We were told by our managers, with promoters at their side, to ignore everything the guests were doing, and the only rule to enforce was entry to certain areas required wristbands. Naturally, many banded fellas were none too pleased to be told that they could not take an unbanded fella to the VIP, probably some of the worst heckling and name-calling from patrons. Story 14. I wouldn't say everyone hated me, but I certainly felt the hate. At the beginning of COVID, businesses could only be open with restrictions, in the SF Bay area at least. So a certain amount of square footage devoted to food, only a certain number of people allowed in at a time, 6 feet apart, masks required. And I had to take temperatures with those forehead thermometers and enforce mask protocol. My company was very strict, did not want to risk any infection among staff or customers, and wouldn't budge. I was personally exposed to many thousands of people directly and never caught anything. So I know I provided a necessary barrier. But man, when people hated me, they really hated me. And when they had a high temperate, they were denied entry. It was a one and done for the day. No manipulating your forehead with a water bottle for a retake. I don't miss doing that. Story 15. Mac Genius. I have never been under so much stress from both the customer and business side of things. Delivering bad news to people all day takes a toll on you. There are some pleasant interactions too, but the vast majority of what you're doing feels bad. That energy comes with you when you leave for the day. And many of my coworkers drank to excess, smoked or developed other less than healthy outlets for stress. No matter how you feel about Apple as a company, the people that keep the wheel spinning on the daily are just trying to do their jobs. Being in a hole at the Genius Bar doesn't affect Apple at all, but it does absolutely affect the person who you were in a hole to. Story 16. Restaurant manager. Always a staff member who wants to fight about policy, always a server that wants to make up their own menu, always a customer who does not understand why X is not on the menu when it never has been, always a customer who wants to argue. You do have that because they saw it on the TikTok secret menu video. Always someone who complains they did not get something they never ordered or does not come with what they ordered. Always someone who insists they know the owner. Always somebody harassing a female server. Always someone not wanting to wait as if I is all pre-made hot and ready to go. And lastly, always a staff member calling your damn name for some stupid thing they need every 30 seconds, literally. You cannot go 1 minute without hearing your name being yelled out. Sometimes that is a good thing, but not at work. Story 17. Lifeguard. Listen, I don't make the rules that under 16-ish aren't allowed in the hot tub, sauna, or steam room. It's not my fault you can't dive into a pool with a depth of 1.2 meters. Story 18. I had a very specific healthcare job where I was supporting suicidal teens. In this role and in the state I work in, I do not have any latitude to share patients' information without explicit documents being signed. Even parents can't get information about their kid's stay if the kid doesn't want to sign the document. So imagine me, the guy on the phone, when you call to get an update about your teen, telling you I don't have anything I can share. They got heated quickly. Many of them accused me of doing wrong by them. Many called me some pretty terrible names. Some cussed me out, others hang up on me. In the back of my mind, though, I know some of these kids were abused by the same people wanting updates. So I know I was doing right by the patient, even with the parents throwing a fit. Story 19. In the early days of digital automation, it was all about efficiency and headcount reduction. I would get called into an area of the company, analyze their work with them to get it automated, and then we'd fire them because their job was so easy a digital robot could do it. I was responsible for 400 jobs being eliminated, saved the company millions. I was well liked in my previous role, but after that, everyone dreaded my presence. Cold, no small talk, less and less people would even greet me. The culture has shifted to upskilling employees when their job is automated, but being the harbinger of unemployment really allowed me to hyper-focus a business mentality and has taken me a long way in my career. At first, I felt bad, and then it happened so often and regularly that it allowed me to become kind of numb to the reality. Story 20. I work at a children's hospital on a psych unit providing trauma-informed care to teens. It's really common for the kids to reject our care and target us physically and verbally. This is understandable. And also, they're traumatized kids, so they deserve a lot of forgiveness and kindness. The families, however, are brutal. Many of them are so hard on us because they have been filed on by for abuse, neglect, etc., and are losing custody of their children. They are obviously down on their luck and have their own mental health problem, but it can be really hard to not let it get to you. My coworkers are such selfless people, and it's very hard to see them get attacked for simply doing their job and trying to provide therapy for kids in need. Story 21. As the engineering consultant for product management, it's my job to tell execs and salespeople, no, that's not possible. And if you want that feature, you're going to have to explain to clients that we're delaying release 3 months, or that change is only possible if you want to add to the budget. And then on the other end, I turn around to my team and say, here's this unrealistic expectation the higher-ups have that they won't compromise on. I'm trying my best to get this cut back, but please try to work some magic. If you have to make any cuts, tell me and I'll pass that info along in the list of concessions they had to make for this demand to happen. Nobody likes the bearer of bad news. Story 22. Outbound telemarketing in the early 2000s, mostly trying to sell physical business newspaper and magazine subscriptions, which makes me sound ancient. Yes, I know you hated me, but I was just trying to make some money for college. I hated me too, and that job for that matter, but there are not too many other jobs that both pay decent and hire 18-year-olds with no experience. I also tried to sign people up for credit cards, and in looking back, the craziest thing about that job was that some people said yes. Me, a rando teenager, calling you on the phone out of the blue. And some of these people, though in fairness not many, rattled off their SSN, birthday, name, address, mother's maiden name, everything without a second's hesitation. Story 23. I'm a groundskeeper at a school. The school is in an affluent area. So I'm a dude who makes $40,000 that has BMW and Land Rover driving moms and dads who get all duck the police gangster attitude on me when I politely tell them they can't have their off-leash dog on school property, that a bathroom is locked because it winterized, and please don't try to break the door, don't drive their SUV across the athletic fields, or that they can't smoke and drink alcohol in the bleachers during a weekend pal soccer game. Some frequent classics are, what's your name? I'm on the school board. I thought this was America. I know, insert name of random administrator. He's a service dog. I pay my taxes. Whatever, bro. Snickers, story 24. My current career, teacher, my district sucks. It's honestly more the adults that make my life difficult. My students are great. I enjoy doing what I do, but it's tough when the district board thinks that we're overpaid. Do nothing. Teach students about sexual orientation and all things. I save the best for last. The parents in the community and the board president have no problem calling teachers pedo. Yes, pedo, story 25. Not everyone. Lots of people are super nice, but working in 911 dispatch has showed me a lot of people are just throwing anger at the first faceless person they interact with. We have a doctor paid millions of dollars a year to give us caveman level of simple instructions, and people completely ignore them, then yell at you when they do the wrong thing. I need you to get 4 low-dose aspirins and tell me when you have them. Okay, I gave them to him and he swallowed them. Sir, he was supposed to chew them to get them into his bloodstream faster. I need you to listen to me and follow my instruction. You just told me to give them to him? What the duck? Story 26. I'm going to be very generic. A lifetime ago, it seems like, I worked with a group that would be called in to handle arbitration and complaints. Sometimes HR would need to call in a third party for insurance purposes to cover their butts. And yeah, there will be times we would have to fire people. And we would be the ones hearing the complaints about, this person was such a good person, they needed the job. We had no business firing them, etc. But the reason we were there was because these same people were complaining that the individual had been caught having sex with someone who wasn't their spouse on company property. Someone was coming to work drunk, someone was starting fights, someone was stealing, etc. Story 27. Probably food delivery. If food is late, it's not the place that took 20 minutes just to tell you they didn't have the customer's burger available. It's clearly on you, the driver. If the food doesn't taste good or is made poorly, the restaurant doesn't get slammed. No, instead, the driver is not getting a tip. Yeah, there are crappy delivery persons out there, but most of the time, it's the restaurant that fulfills your order last, being the reason why your food is cold or sloppily made. And since you're not a sitting, tipping, paying customer, most restaurants don't like you much either, since you're just someone loitering in their lobby and it makes them look bad. No way to win. Story 28. Call center agent for a major credit card company. People would call in pissed off because they didn't understand APR or how to calculate what the interest charges would be. Some people would be angry because a lock would be applied when they make weird purchases from their normal day-to-day activities. I had people call me furious because We didn't automatically apply more money on the cards at the start of every month, and they didn't understand that they had to pay their credit card bill to be able to use it. I'm not even kidding. We agents used to joke that people should be required to take a class and a test before being allowed to have babies or credit card. Story 29. I'm a commercial construction inspector. The crap contractors will try to get away with amazes me. Had a contractor fail 80% of his welds on a roof for a community swim center. The city sided with the contractor, and now we don't use that pool. Story 30. Definitely dentist. Everyone dreads seeing you. No matter how good your bedside manner is and nice a person you are, definitely takes a mental toll. In the 2021 Dentist Health and Wellbeing Survey, 54% of dentists reported having medium or high levels of depression. The best way to support a colleague suffering from depression is to encourage them to seek help. Story 31. My husband works in environmental health and safety. Most hate him until they get to know him and realize he worked the jobs before and approaches it from a more rounded respect than do this, do that because I said so type. He takes the time to explain and listens to them, but it does suck when new people start because they just hate him for being safety. Story 32. I was a college RA. At the beginning of the year, I gave a speech about partying that was pretty much, don't make me do my job, please. Don't make me do my job. If I can't smell, hear, or see you, then I don't have to get you in trouble. But if I do smell, hear, or see you doing something illegal, then I have to do my job and you're gonna get in trouble. Some people were great about it. Some people felt like they shouldn't be accountable to their own actions. But I did my job regardless. Wouldn't advise being an RA to anyone. Tough gig. Story 33. Resident assistant. Your job is to police the dorm floors. I had 0 write-ups over 2.5 years. I simply made a lot of empty threats. Most people were too dumb to realize that the biggest consequence they faced with me was a brief conversation with me, telling them to turn the duck down at midnight and later. Most of them still hate you though. Daring to interrupt their super special party is unforgivable. Some love that you have your own room, and I was chastised by my own residents a couple times for having a lady over that were too loud while doing the deed. Story 34. I work in construction safety. It's literally my job to be the a-hole who makes workers wear their PPE and control identified hazards in their workspace. They hate me whenever they see me coming. My bosses hate me too when I tell them we can't defend ourselves from workers' compensation claims costs because nearly all compo investigations rightfully conclude with lack of proper supervision. So I get it from both sides from within my own company. Then on top of that, the regulators rightfully come on site and pick apart everything we do on a regular basis. It's a stressful job at the best of times. Story 35. Dentist. So many people have had bad experiences with rough dentists, especially when they were young, and there is an idea that dentists are trying to scam you or take your money. Some of those individuals are out there, but for the most part, a dentist is a health provider like any other. I take great care to be compassionate, empathetic, and gentle with my patients. It's hard to make dental work pleasant, but I do what I can to make it as comfortable as possible. Still, hearing no offense, but I hate dentists on the daily can wear on you. Story 36. Tech support/customer service. It was my job to help people, yet they acted like I caused their problem and as if I wasn't even trying to fix it. I got yelled at and verbally abused daily. After 13 years, I noped the duck out and will never go back. I was good at it too, advancing to tier 3, but the more complicated the problem, the more abuse I took, and it followed me home at the end of the day. They pay wasn't worth it. I'd rather work at McDonald's. Story 37. Telephone survey. Worked my way through college doing that. Yes, we are calling you in the middle of dinner. Yes, this is legal. No, the website where you registered to block crap like this only apply to telemarketing because the government has decided that surveys have societal value and therefore can't be blocked, sir. No, having a hidden telephone number will not stop us. This is a customer satisfaction survey, and your insert corporation they are customers of here have provided the phone number. No, I'm afraid I'm already in hell. Have a nice day. Story 38. I'm a healthcare worker and work for a DME in respiratory. During COVID, I was the guy who went into patients' homes to set them up on oxygen and ventilators and such. I was threatened multiple times at gunpoint, knife, and pan because they claimed COVID was fake. I was spat on, assaulted, and underpaid. I just wanted to help people, but they decided to take their anger out on me. COVID wasn't easy, so it's still not easy where I live, as there's still so many who still think it was just a bad flu or something. Story 39. Was doing a job in a hotel during COVID, where people coming into the country had toozed psi in the hotel until their COVID test came back clear. My country's citizens could fast track it a bit by doing something, can't remember what. But we were the go-between, whoever made the call, and of course, it's our fault when their appeal gets declined. Like, God damn it, Karen. It's not my fault you decided to go on holidays during the biggest pandemic of the century, knowing before you left that this would happen and accepted it. Story 40. I rejoined a company I worked for before, but a different team, and there was such a big pointing fingers culture. Any minor mistake I made resulted in being scolded in front of the team in our daily meeting, or the person who pointed it out telling on me to my manager. The role gave me anxiety, and I was more focused on how not to get in trouble than how can I benefit the team. So I resigned carrying my anxiety with me to my new job, which I failed probation for. Story 41. I was the assistant supervisor for my department at a mortgage company. I was the person everyone would go to for help, trained new hires, and kept tabs on people to make sure they were getting their work done. That also made me the person that everyone vents to if the boss was unavailable. Tell people they were fired and cleaned out their belongings, and would try to blame me if they made an error. I want to work hard and be nice to everyone, but it took a big toll on my physical and mental health. Story 42. FedEx delivery driver. Everyone always complains about their packages, but honestly, most of the time, they get loaded into our trucks broken. The system, like the mechanical system that carries packages, is often what will break a package and not the driver. Additionally, the people who package your package in the first place should use a lot more care when packaging items. I don't know how many times something has broken because the people who packaged the package didn't use any insulation and just threw it in a box. Story 43. I worked for AirTran, that old airline, and sometimes we worked at the ticket counter. It felt like 80% of the customers hated us, no matter how efficiently we did the job or how hard we tried. Quite a few times, we had long-ass lines waiting to check in, and the nearby TSA checkpoint was taking their sweet-ass time opening or didn't open at all, and that was totally out of our control. But people took it out on us. The ramp was fun sometimes, but my coworkers were lazy crap bags. Story 44. I was an art director at a new agency that just hired a new creative director who wanted to change the way everything was done with a new stream of clients. All the designers I worked with never worked with an ad or copywriter before. All wanted their artistic expression and loathed working with the three of us. We quit after 3 months of being hated, talked about behind our backs, and office politics from the old guard. 70% of that agency got made redundant when the clients left. Story 45. In the past, I've worked a fair amount of bouncer/security jobs. Inevitably, you have a bunch of drunks and someone tries to do something stupid, like climb something, start a fight, etc. You're just trying to de-escalate and get them to stop because it's sometimes dangerous for not only them, but others. Yet 9 out of 10, it's, you think you're tough? No, I'm just trying to make sure folks are safe, and you trying to drunkenly climb up onto the stage with the band isn't helping. Story 46. Supervisory roles in manufacturing. Come on, man. I'm getting my ass crawled daily by our manager because you won't do the simple task that's been assigned to you. I would love to be your friend and hang out and have conversations too, but I can't because I'm too busy getting chewed out for something I had nothing to do with. I have to say something or I'll get fired. It's not personal, or I would phrase it very differently. Just help me help us, please. Story 47. Lifeguard. A big part of that job is to be proactive about enforcing the safety rules so that you don't have to save anyone. I always took pride in how few saves I had to make because I saw that as a sign that I was good at being proactive. But so many parents and children think that you're just being annoying. I got called a party pooper a few times. Over the years, I had several different people start screaming obscenities at me. Story 48. I was a tech for Comcast. Started in service, and management found out I was a really nerdy guy that was good with his hands, and I ended up doing a lot of project work and escalations. After only a few years, it took such a mental toll on me that I can't work a customer-facing job without having anxiety attacks, even though the vast majority of the time I was in someone's house to fix what the last guy ducked up. Story 49. Installing signage at an airport train station. No, you can't use this entrance. It's dangerous. No, you aren't the exception. Yes, the other entrance is over there. No, I won't duck myself. No, I'm not a busybody. Yes, I am working. I'm keeping people like you from getting hurt in a construction zone. Yes, I actually do want you to catch your train, which is why I want you, so stop trying to start an argument you can't win. Story 50. Financial statement auditor. It was my job to ask a lot of questions and be very critical of someone else's work. I had to force clients to fix their financials over stuff that, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't really matter. No one likes having to deal with that, and honestly, I don't blame anyone who feels that way. Story 51. Animal hospital. What I did was never enough for the vet techs. It wasn't enough for the clients either, and they would scream the cost of vet bills or the lack of care, which I had nothing to do with. It was all too much 12-hour shifts, every shift multiple times a week with maybe one day off in the week was the punch. Even wanting one 30-minute lunch break a shift was a hassle. Story 52, bank teller. There are some nice people, but many customers seem to think that a bank account is a human right, and that you're the one that makes all the business decisions for the bank. Dude, I'm just here to help you get cash or whatever. I didn't call your employer and tell them to not direct deposit your paycheck until tomorrow. Also, people seem to not like when banks follow federal banking regulations because it inconveniences them. Story 53, meter reading. Water department doesn't matter if someone is 50 cents late on their water bill. You still have to go out there, try to contact them for payment, and if they're not home, you gotta shut their water down. Guys I worked with were more than understanding. Some would pay out of their own wallet if someone was behind. But still, there were days where I felt terrible shutting someone's water/gas off. Story 54. Security guard at a concert venue. No, you can't have any more drinks, the bartender said. You've had a mount already. Listen, if you keep causing a commotion, I'll have to escort you off the property. They get physical because I told them no and they're drunk AF, and now I have to call the on-site cops over and have them arrest you, being the different limits for different drinks we served.